we were put in jail after 3 days in Ibiza. And what it was at the time, I think the Spanish police were coming down hard on British hooligans. And we went to this all-night pool party. It was a great pool party. You had to find somebody from the opposite sex to dance with. And then when the music stopped, you had to exchange an item of clothes with them.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast Chats. And we've got a very, very special guest today who's been blindsided completely. I didn't send him the brief. Vanessa sorted it out. I told him anything. Simon, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's just a pleasure to be here. That you get somebody of my age on your podcast. I'm over the moon.
So we sent an email this morning, didn't we? Saying, what do you wear? But you're looking very, very smart.
Well, I tried to prove to the young'uns that I'm not dead in the water completely now.
Yeah.
So I tried to keep up with the latest fashion trends. And
you
stuff
done your
like
makeup?
That. Sorry?
Did you get your makeup? Did Vanessa do your makeup?
Yeah, she just did it outside actually. So yeah, she couldn't hide the grey hair, unfortunately. So apologize about that.
Nice. So the way we normally start the podcast is 3 facts about yourself. I've literally given you no time to prepare.
Okay.
So what are you going to go for?
Ooh, this is facts that people probably wouldn't know. And actually, the first one is something I normally try to keep quiet because I'm a big sports fan and I love my football and my golf and that from a young age. But I actually support 2 football teams.
That's interesting.
Yes, it's very contentious. My friends and family always say that you've got to be specific to one. But my father is from Newcastle. I was brought up in Newcastle, but I support Sunderland. Which is something I don't normally let out of the bag until I find out what the football allegiance is of who I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that I also support Liverpool. And people don't think you can support 2 teams, but I look at it as actually quite intelligent because football can get you down so much if your team loses. So I'm hedging my bets here. If Sunderland lose and Liverpool win, I get a certain amount of happiness back and vice versa.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to tell you before, but them 2 teams, I've got some kind of relationship with them both. Sunderland, Jordan Pickford, love him.
Yeah.
And second, I support Everton.
Oh,
so yeah, we can't be friends.
I can manage Everton, but if you said Manchester United, I'd have to draw the line somewhere
there. We're no threat though. We're literally no threat to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the rivalry in Newcastle and Sunderland is pretty intense. It gets beyond the joke. And sometimes if you see a lot of social media stuff, about, and the second thing I'd probably mention specific to that is when I got married when I was in my late 20s, my ex-wife was from Sunderland.
Okay.
So it took my father about 2 weeks to fall out with her whole family, I think. But when we got divorced, he was absolutely, he's ranging a congratulations party and all of that sort of stuff.
That's so funny. It's mad, isn't it, how football's such a big part of everyone's lives?
It is. It's actually, I work closely with a lot of Americans through the company I have, and they just don't get it. And I remember back in 1999, because I like my boxing as well, which maybe people don't know. My dad used to be an amateur boxer.
Oh, cool. That can be the second fact then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I should have a squash nose, actually, the amount of times I've been hit, but never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 1999, we went across to Madison Square Garden, New York, and to see the Lennox Lewis Evander Holyfield fight.
Oh, cool.
Which was an amazing experience. And it was putting the British mentality of sports onto the US, because they can be, even though they're quite brash generally, it can be quite reserved. And myself, my father, and a lot of other Brits were starting the, walking in the Lewis Wonderland, all of these sort of chants, and these guys from Indiana next to us. So we've never seen this before. We're quite reserved. We watched we might give a cheer every now and again, but we turned it into a football match, basically.
Hooligans.
Exactly.
And then a final fact then. So we've got the football, we've got the boxing, and one more. What are you going to say?
I think a lot of people probably know this anyway, but, I think we all live for our children. I'm a big family man. I've been divorced and I've been a single parent for quite a long time. And even from a young age, when they were young, my friends were off playing golf and doing their things, and I had my kids to look after. So, I'm very close to them. I think because fatherhood is a lot more hands-on now than what it used to be, maybe at my dad's era, when the man went out to work and the woman was at home looking after the kid. Yeah. It's, equality now, but yeah, I love spending time with them. My son's big into his sports. My daughter loves going to the movies, which I also love to go to as well. So when they come across, especially my daughter, we just watch movie after movie after movie after movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And she tells me off because I have to leave my work phone out of the room otherwise. Now it's like you can't watch a movie all the way through without checking your phone.
Bad, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah. I'm like that with the football when I watch it on TV. I'm constantly checking my phone and like put it on the floor.
But I always remember though, the unlimited packages you get at the movies. I used to go all the time. I think when I wasn't getting on with my first wife, I went to see American Pie 5 times because I had unlimited membership. So you could go as many times as you want.
It's good.
As soon as my daughter was in bed, I was like, right.
Yeah, you're getting value for money there. Definitely. So then let's talk about what you were like growing up then. What did you enjoy doing? What did you aspire to be?
Do you know, I don't know about you, Adam, but I don't know if many of us really know what we want to do. I think we try to follow our dreams. I wanted to, I was an only child. I loved my sports, my football. I got into golf when I was about 12, got into squash. I was a lot fitter back then than what I am now.
Weren't we all?
So all I can say is rather than necessarily what I want to be, and this is what I say to my own kids, sometimes you have to follow your dreams. I think there's too many practicalities that get in the way, and parents want their kids to have jobs that you must be an accountant, which is I trained to be. You must be a lawyer, you must be this. But I think a lot more encouragement should be given to follow what you aspire to do, what you really want to do, what you enjoy doing, because that's what makes work a lot more fun if you're actually following your hobby.
Yeah.
So my son, for example, who is into his sports, unfortunately, he was on the books of Sunderland when he was younger, but he seems to think the university's got to go down the route of business management and everything. And he's good at English. So I just said, try and go down the sports media route. Try to look at what your hobbies are in life and try to think about where you want to be, but with a hobby in mind. And as I said, if you have a hobby and it's a job,
Doesn't feel like work, does it?
Exactly. But as I said to you before this podcast went on air, I was hopeless at science when I was younger. Everything was more maths, English and everything. And I flunked science. I just didn't have an interest in it whatsoever. But, I now run a medical laser company and I've got to know the ins and outs of photochemistry and, biological side of the body and things like that. So I don't think very many of us actually end up following the route that we pan out as a kid. I don't know. Is this what you wanted to do when you were younger?
So say, for example, my mum used to be a careers advisor when she was younger and she would suggest everything under the sun. I really liked events when I was at school, like 16-ish. So then I wanted to do events management at university.
Yeah.
But then my dad said, don't limit yourself to one thing. So I went to do hospitality and events. Hated the events, dropped the event, went to do hospitality. He was going to go and work in hotels. But then at uni, ran events, set up my own events business, and then set up my own marketing business and stopped doing the events. And things like kind of spiral. Like you say, I really enjoyed the social media promotion, the marketing parts of the events.
Yeah.
So then obviously I went into that. And it's just like you say, you follow your passion, things that you enjoy. And more often than not, you're actually quite good at it. Right?
Yeah. But you've done that with a certain level of drive and ambition as well. And for anybody out there, I know they're probably saying, what is this? He's away from what the current mentality is, but it doesn't matter how talented you are in life. You've got to have that drive and ambition to get there.
Yeah. Always. I think that hard work will always outperform talent, won't it? You look at, we talk about football, these professional footballers and stuff like that. The talented players, say one for Everton, Dele Alli, all the talent in the world, but he doesn't have the work ethic, and that's why he's dropped off.
Well, he got his first big contract, then he just thought, I've got it made now. Started seeing Pep Guardiola's door, I think, didn't he?
And then now he's at Everton, just getting a big paycheck, and God knows what he's going to do. So at school then, at 16, was it always, I want to go to university? Or was it, what was kind of like the next steps? And
do you know what? This is why it's nice hearing about your experiences and your drive and ambition, and a couple of the team that worked for me are the same, because I really didn't have a clue. Not until I was probably in my 30s. And I think I was sort of pressured into getting a grip of my life when I could have done it a lot earlier. And when my daughter was 1 year old, that's when I split up with my ex-wife, and I was thrust into a world of having a child to look after every weekend when my mates were playing golf or they would go to the match or whatever. And that really thrust me into, right, I need to get my life in order. So anytime I hear from somebody what you've just said and any others that really have that vision when they're actually younger, great to them, because I probably end up being 10 years behind where I should have been if I'd only got my act together at a younger age.
But everyone's on the different time scale, aren't they? Different timeline. It's so easy these days, I feel like, to compare yourself to other people and thinking, oh, they're doing a bit better than me, they're doing a bit better. But there's no race to the finish line, is there? And it's
I think with your era, though, I was chatting to my other half about this the other night. everybody, your mentality is different to your father's. His mentality is different to his father's. It's a generation thing as time goes on. But I think this current generation is so far removed from the previous because of what you've got when you've been growing up and the YouTube really hitting off and, Xboxes and all of this sort of stuff. It's a very different mentality. And I think for anybody aspiring to do something, I think, it's definitely now a case of, right, you've got to get off your arse and you've got to get up and do it.
Yeah.
Rather than my son, for example, he's extremely talented. He's was football and academic. He still doesn't quite know what he wants to do. And I try to put it across to my kids that what you just said, it doesn't matter about ability. You can have the ability, but if you don't have the hard work ethic, you don't have the vision, you can forget it. You've got to have that ethic right from the beginning and know what you want and not wait for it to come to you.
Yeah.
You've got to go and get it. And I think some of this current generation with the likes of the YouTube stuff and that, it's a case of, I want to earn 100 grand a year, but I just don't want to have to go through that bit in the middle to get that. So am I being unfair about this?
That's so true. See it all the time. Is that everyone wants to go 0 to 100, don't they?
Yeah.
But they don't want to do the in between, which is the hard bit, and doing the behind the scenes. Like, people will watch me doing podcasts with people every week, and they think, "Oh, must be easy." But you don't see like the logistics of working it out and the money it costs to get it edited and all that kind of stuff. And
it's the preparation as well for you coming up with something fresh, coming up with something that people want to listen to.
Yeah. So then you said you didn't really find what you wanted to do until your 30s. Then, so pre that in your 20s. What were you kind of like in your 20s then?
I suppose back in the day, it was just, you just partied.
Yeah.
Basically, first lads holiday away before I was 18 was San Antonio and Ibiza.
Oh yeah. I'm doing that next month, one of my stag do's.
I still remember going through the airport now, being an only child. I put my bag through. My mother had put bacon and sausage and other things because I'd never been away by myself before into the case to make sure that I had everything that I wanted to have. And we were like a fish out of water. And again, probably going back to, what you said before about something that somebody doesn't know about me, that first holiday away, this is with 7 young lads who are from like Darras Hall, Ponteelan, which is a relatively nice area, but we just didn't have a clue how the world worked. And, we got away in, I think within 3 days, and let me finish this story before we were put in jail after 3 days in Ibiza. And what it was at the time, I think the Spanish police were coming down hard on British hooligans. And we went to this all-night pool party. It was a great pool party. You had to find somebody from the opposite sex to dance with. And then when the music stopped, you had to exchange an item of clothes with them. So by the time you got actually through everything. So we got back from that about 4. One of my mates was walking a girl back to her apartment. We had some music blasting from the room. We were down on the street and asked one of the lads to throw a bottle of beer down. And of course, when you're drunk, it doesn't quite go according to plan. It went about 20 yards over the head and smashed against the wall behind. Got to bed about 4-ish and then knock on the door. Thought it was my mate coming back from walking a girl back. And it was the police came in with their batons and they started hammering the hell out of everybody. I still remember a friend hiding under the bed thinking that they wouldn't look there and getting a real wallop under the bed. So they brought us down to the police station. We still didn't know what we had done. Was it the bottle? Was it the music too loud or anything like that? And they put us in jail with this drunk. And because we were only 17, 18, we sort of all like scrunched up to one end of the jail cell while he was over the other side. Thinking, he's about 70. He probably wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. They came in after about 6 hours and said, right, we're fining you £25 each. But we were about 2 miles out of town. We had to choose somebody to go back and get the money to come back again. And they let us out with the money and gave us nightclub tickets, which was,
That's bizarre.
Which, I've got a house in Spain, so I know how a lot of it works. There's a lot of backhanders. So, they would have just pocketed that money. And there you go. There's a couple of nightclub tickets. Probably got a commission for getting us to go in as well. So, the guys' holidays and that were like a prime part. I had a serious relationship when I was 17 and everybody thought we were going to get married, but I just felt as though I hadn't lived my life. My mum back in the day used to get fuel in garages and you get like free cutlery and free crockery. And she'd all put that away from when me and my ex would eventually get married. And this is where I'd say to anybody out there, I'm not saying obviously for everybody that it's for them, but there's so much to do in life and so many places to visit, so many places to go. Get as much as you can out of the way before you eventually settle down. Because having the family is nice, but it's hard work.
Yeah, definitely. And say my parents, they had me and my brother when they were like 35, 37, something like that. Like I said to you before, I was born in America. My dad traveled with his job to like Paris and America. He was based there.
Yeah.
And then when they wanted to settle down, they had me and my brother. And I always think as well, you're boring now, but you forget to live a life before me.
Yeah.
And they live the life because it's different. I'd imagine, is it? When you got kids, they do.
It is.
Where you want to travel and stuff like that. But you wouldn't obviously change it for the world.
You wouldn't change it, but you would only probably, the only thing you maybe would change is the timing of it. Sometimes you would do it when you're ready to do it. Because I always remember as well, my parents losing it with me. And, as a kid, when your parent loses it with you and you're like, I've hardly done anything wrong. They've completely overreacted. But then when you become a parent, you realize that you have your bad days at work and you come back and you take it out on the kids. It's a bit like that.
That's funny. So then what was the catalyst then, do you reckon, from going from that stage in your 20s to partying to thinking, I want to progress in my career and that side of things?
As I said, I think it was having the responsibility. Because I don't think I took life too serious. I just wanted to go through life just enjoying it. And all of the advice, if you can get that as early as possible, it just accentuates and accelerates the whole process. But it was having the responsibility of having a 1-year-old baby on a Saturday when my mates were out playing golf. And I was going down, I remember South Shields Beach, and there was families on the beach. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this 1-year-old? So we all grow at our own pace. And I think for me, I was a late developer. And it wasn't until, I had to pay child maintenance and I thought, oh God, and, get my own place and stuff that made me grow up. So I would imagine, like I said, I probably had it too easy in life. And our parents, I think, love us to pieces. But sometimes when they don't, sometimes you've got to be cruel to be kind.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to learn a harsh lesson. So I've tried to do what I can with my kids to give them a harsh lesson earlier in life, which gets them a more of an independent mindset so that they really know what they want and they know nothing, there's not going to be a red carpet laid out for them. They really they want to, achieve their dreams. They've got to not wait for them to the dream to come along. They've got to go and get it.
Yeah. Tough love's important.
Oh, completely. In this day and age as well. And it's tough to do because I think we all want to spoil our kids and we all want to give them nice things in life, but it's having that ability to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, I think even if you look at the Beckhams, I think they sort of said, yes, of course, the kids have been brought up in an environment where there's a lot of money, but they wanted to instill into the kids the hard work ethic that they needed to have to get where they got to.
Yeah. I imagine it's difficult, isn't it? Like, I don't have any kids at the moment, but like you say, you want to spoil them, you want them because you've worked hard for what you've got. So you want to give back to them, but it's just instilling the work ethic, which I think is important, isn't it? To understand.
As well as a divorced parent, I always felt like I had to fit so much into a short space of time. So I wanted to do whatever I could in that period of time with them and spoil them and do this, this, and this. But then it just sort of hit home to me that I don't want them to get too used to a good life. I want them to think, well, if I want that, I've got to work and do something to deserve that. Whether that's by way of, working harder to get a better qualification at college or uni and damning that carrot as to X amount of money or a trip somewhere or something which can just give them that extra bit of, bump.
Yeah. So then what jobs were you doing then at this point and where were you at with your career?
Just nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I dropped out of the start of doing A-levels because my mates were doing another course and I wanted to do that with them, even though it was a non-entity of a course. I went to college, so I didn't go to university again because I dropped out of A-levels. But, it's these experiences, I think, as well, that it's awkward because you don't want to preach, but you've been there, done it, and I should have dug in rather than, chase the highlight. But I was trained to be an accountant, worked for a local airline at Newcastle Airport, got to travel all over the place because with the airline privately, took the lads to the Med for like 20 quid. Because if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours with the airlines, standby flights. And, we'd go across to Latin America for a weekend or to Iron Napa for a weekend. Or
they loved you.
Yeah, exactly. The problem was though, because it was standby, it meant you only basically got a seat if there was seats spare.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'd always get out there, but frequently we'd turn up at the airport going back and it was a full flight. So then we had to try and find a flight back to anywhere else. So we've ended up in Bristol and getting a car rental, ended up in Gatwick having to get a car. And even ended up, two of us ended up in the cockpit of a 737 or what it was coming back from Ayia Napa.
How were you allowed in the cockpit?
Well, because of the way the airline industry works, it's like, that deadheading thing you get as Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Sat in the cockpit. There was a breakdown in communication between the ground crew and the pilot. It's great. The pilot thought it was two pilots that worked for an airline that wanted to go and coming back. Not it was a revenue accountant and his mates. So we got in, they put the jump seats down. We were introduced to the pilots and the captain said, so, how long have you had your license? I thought you meant car license. So I was like, well, since I was 17, well, you started early then. I said, oh, I'm sorry. What? I'm flat pilot says I'm not a pilot. He said, well, what are you doing here?
I don't know as much as you.
He sent us both to Coronary. He wouldn't speak a word for us in the whole 5-hour flight, but it was an amazing experience, which,
unbelievable.
Like coming into land as well, because it was dark and seeing the runway and doing all that, which actually, that was one thing I should have told you before about what people didn't know about me.
Yeah, go on.
I had a private pilot's license.
Oh, that's impressive.
I think that came from that.
What they gave you because you're in the cockpit.
Yes. I was like, I'd love to do this. At the time, how many girls am I going to pull being a pilot?
That's what you're thinking, definitely.
But yeah, at the end of that duration, unfortunately, my mum died when she was 62. I was about 27, 28. And a little bit of money that was actually left, I decided to give up my job, which I got into advertising then. But back in the day, it was like directory advertising. You get your Yellow Pages through the post or your Thomson directories.
Oh, yeah. That was hard. That was hard.
Oh, mate. It was, you had to. The Thomson directories, because Yellow Pages were like the big guys. The training was so intense. And I think I ended up proposing to my first wife after the training because it was so intense. I felt vulnerable. I had a few drinks. I was like some bitches. It's tough. I can't handle this. But yeah, and I decided to try and get a pilot's license. So I went over to Kissimmee in Florida.
Okay.
Did my PPL, private pilot's license. It was great because it was on the side of Disney. So I did my IMC rating, which is one that you can fly through clouds, basically, so you can't use your instruments. And the night rating, which was brilliant again, because you were taking off and landing at night and Disney was just by the side. So you'd come in and you'd see all of the lights and everything that would go off there. So yeah, if you had told me before about prepping, I would have thought I've got a pilot's license.
Yeah. I gave you literally 2 seconds. So then what did you do after that then?
Well, I wanted to become a commercial pilot. And that was part of one. And I came back and went back to the US to build up my hours. I didn't have enough money to go down the conventional route. So I had to sort of do it, on the side. And my ex-wife, one of the contact of hers, had a commercial license, and he sort of guided me through potential ways that you could do it without going down the conventional route, which would cost about $100,000, which I didn't have.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. So I used to go back to the US, build up my hours, and then my ex-wife became pregnant with my first child. And I think it was just a case of concentration. When you've got a baby in the house and the thought of the baby being born. And obviously from a money perspective, the dynamic of everything changed.
Yeah.
So I had to give up on that dream. I did my first lot of exams, but it was crazy because you got 7 exams that you had to do. And it was like electrics, engineering, and all. I'm like, I want to fly the bloody plane. I don't have to. I'll be an engineer. The engine goes out or something. I climb out of the cockpit at 30,000 feet. And
I've done an exam on this, yeah. Then we saw it. It's crazy, yeah.
And I wasn't scientific when I didn't have an interest in that. I can only really put myself in this if I'm interested in it. So this guy got me these old exam papers. He said, just memorize all of that. Most of the questions will come up on it. Yeah. So I did do that, but then I went to take the exams. I thought, it didn't come up. I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So I passed 3 out of the 7, but you had to get 4 out of the 7, or you had to do the whole lot again.
Oh.
So even the 3 I passed, I would have had to do again.
Nightmare.
So, but we said this before, even off air, when you put yourself out of your comfort zone and you make mistakes in life, but it's all part of building up your character. And I think it's the experiences like that, because I thought it would be, such a great life. I'd work for British Airways or, transatlantic across to, LA, San Francisco, all of these places, spend 3 days off, enjoying it and then fly back. And it didn't quite materialize. So every 5 years in my life, or even probably less than that, you've got to reevaluate where you are. And then you've got to change what you want to do and where you want to go.
Yeah.
And the next step was I had a mate who was in medical.
Yeah.
He was selling orthopedic implants like shoulders and elbows and knees and making an absolute fortune. But you needed either a degree in that or you just needed to be in the right place at the right time. And I didn't have the degree. So I was lucky enough to come across an opportunity to get into, diagnostic imaging like MRI and CT.
Okay.
It was based at the Newcastle Nuffield Hospital to try to, get as many patients into the MRI unit as possible, get contracts with the NHS hospitals, the big lorries that you sometimes see on the side, that they have the MRI scanners in, to try to get contracts for that.
Okay.
And this is one thing I'd say to anybody who maybe even doesn't have the qualifications, but don't let that stop where you eventually want to go to. I've always said to my kids, even at school, be likable. If you're likable, you can get so far in life.
Oh, yes. 100%. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
You turn an interview, if you can get to the interview stage, you might not necessarily have what they're looking for from a qualification perspective, but if you come across in such an ethical way, a nice way, a good personality, then that can sometimes get you one step ahead of people who maybe do have the qualifications, but they don't have the personality.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a valid point, because so many people may be really rigid or shy or maybe too in your face, isn't it? And you just think like you or something about you. But if you can actually just listen to what people have to say and just be nice and happy and friendly, it gets you a long, long way, doesn't it?
But even go back to when you were at school, they say a teacher that you specifically had. My son never listened to me, unfortunately. So he kept going on, getting on detention. But I said to him, if the teacher likes you, they'll do more for you.
Yeah.
If the teacher thinks you're an arse and they're just taking instant dislike into you, they're going to pull you up on absolutely every minute thing. So use that as an experience.
Yeah. And I was literally thinking, driving up today, like we were discussing before, me and Vanessa went to the same school just across the road.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if I went back there and did a speech, I'd definitely say to people, be nice, be friendly. You never know when life might take you in each direction. You might need to speak to the certain person or network, or they might be able to help you. And that kind of thing is, especially kids these days, are brutal, aren't they, with social media and stuff like that. But yeah, being nice gets you a long way in life.
I would hate to have been brought up in this environment now with all of the social medias and everything. It's just a completely different environment. And we know about the trolling and all of this sort of stuff. I think I even dropped off Twitter because I think I followed something like 10 people, and Gary Lineker was one, Tyson Fury was another. And Lineker would just put like a standard comment on about something, and then he'd get an absolute barrage of abuse out of me because you've got money, stop bragging or showing off. He wasn't doing anything of the sort, but I don't know how you find it, but it definitely seems now that, I don't know if it's jealousy or people aren't happy with their own lives, so they try to come down hard on somebody who is happy or done well for themselves.
Yeah, me and Vanessa were talking about it before. When you think about it, they're taking time out of their day to read that tweet that they probably follow, think about what they're going to say, write it out, then send it.
Yeah.
Like they've got nothing better to do with their time. They're obviously very unhappy with their lives. And it is pathetic, really. If you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like Gary Lineker, just a normal person like everyone else. Yeah, he's well paid for what he does, but if the BBC didn't want to pay him, they don't have to, do they? He's obviously worth that money, but I think definitely young girls on Instagram and TikTok these days, so much external pressure, isn't there, for the validation and the vanity metrics for kids, the society of today. I think I was quite lucky that maybe grew up with the social media platforms growing as well.
Right.
So you're kind of a bit removed, whereas if I was, say, 10, 11, 12, 13, going through school now, that is life, isn't it?
Yeah.
They see these influencers and they want to aspire to be like them, and be difficult.
It's a tough one, and it's something that this generation got to come to terms with, because so many things are looks oriented or body shape oriented. We're in the medical aesthetic market where it's about how you look, but we came across something which we can make somebody look better, but also it has the ability to make biological changes to give them more energy and improve their immune response. So we really want to make a difference to people's health, not necessarily just how they look. But you see it so much, don't you, now, where, the pictures or the videos that go on Instagram or on TikTok have been changed appearance.
Yeah.
And I just find it, maybe sorry coming from a 50-year-old guy, but sad that has to do that, because it's the old cliche it's about the connection. It's about, how you get on with somebody. And the personality of somebody. You've got to be attracted to them, but it's just, I don't know, I just find it a bit sad.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. It is a difficult one. But let's talk about then. So you went from working in the medical industry, then how did Erchonia come about?
Like a lot of things, just pure chance. I ended up going from diagnostic imaging, funnily enough, into a company that was involved in plastic surgery.
Okay.
Used to provide breast implants and liposuction equipment and plastic surgery instruments. So I became a national sales manager for that company. And I actually loved that world. I was about 32, 33 at the time.
Interesting.
And it was quite an exciting world.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, funny enough now, even though I'm not involved in it, I still have 2 breast implants I use as paperweights.
I have 2 breast implants.
Well, it might look as though I am at the minute. But yeah, that world got me involved in the medical aesthetic because they were getting into the non-surgical world, which became a lot more prevalent.
Yeah.
Dermal fillers and all of this sort of stuff. So they a porcine collagen, which was used for like nasolabial folds, marionette lines, lips, vermilion borders of lips. So, I quite enjoy that. Was quite an exciting industry because you go along to a lot of these conferences and with your exhibiting or, and you get people with their cheeks up to here and but then, there's a moral aspect to it, but some people unfortunately go too far in that industry, but I loved it, really enjoyed it. We were the top distributor for this filler for an Israeli company. And then they got bought out by Johnson & Johnson, who everybody's heard of. And even though we were top distributor, they wanted to go direct in every market. So we ended up, the MD of the company said, look, source something else to replace it. So I did, but he decided he wanted to stick to the surgical. I thought there was a big market in non-surgical because a lot of the stuff in the market was people want something done in their lunch hour. They want something with no pain, minimally invasive, no downtime. So we came across a product in France, which was an injectable volumizer, which they sort of injected into the dermis. And over time, it regrows collagen and elastin, so it can give a volumizing effect. Or if it's, for example, around here, it can tighten things up. So I got involved in a business project myself with that. And that was my venture from what you'd class as probably standard medical in diagnostic imaging to private markets, which is what we've just discussed there, which we're probably responsible for things that can help change the appearance of somebody.
How was that switch then?
I was always a bit of a poser, so it was quite easy. My first love was a hairdresser. And I got so bad that, if I was going out in the night out, if my hair wasn't how I wanted it, I'd just wash it again. I was terrible. So yeah, I would have probably been the original Geordie Shore.
I was going to
say. But yeah, it's like anything, I think, again, what we've discussed there with the hard work ethic, I think you should also adapt the ability to become a chameleon, not in a negative way, but by way of being able to adapt from any industry environment that you're in. And that goes back to what we've just discussed about personality. If you have personality, you're ethical, people learn to trust you. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And, the likelihood is that you'll be successful in it.
Definitely. So how did things kind of progress from there then?
Well, I got greedy then. That's when I really got my ambition and I wanted to launch my own company. So I came across a corporate lawyer in the Isle of Man and we had an idea to use his investment contacts because Isle of Man was always known for like getting investors money because the tax was low. And we started a project that we thought there was a big future in the aesthetic industry, which it is. And we wanted to identify leading edge products, maybe with companies that didn't have the money to take their product onto the next level. So we came up with an idea as to, we'd identify these products. We would start a company to float on the stock market. We would give them shares in the company in return for revenue to take their product onto the next level. So get, a catalog of leading products, try to build the portfolio of the company up, which obviously should then help raise the share price. But then 2009, the recession came. So we'd started this project. I was waiting for a 7-figure investment to come in. Went out to buy, this is a lesson for everybody as well. I went out to buy an ML 420 Mercedes.
Even before you got the money?
Even before, well, the money, I saw the transaction slip.
Yeah.
Of this $2.3 million that was initially coming across. So me being the type of person I am, as people will tell you, that know me. Yeah, I sometimes jump in when I was younger without thinking through things.
Yeah, as you do.
And I thought, wow, right, okay, I've seen that, got a demo, 150 odd grand. And then the money didn't turn up.
How did that make you feel?
It was a tough time. waiting for the money to arrive. You had your business plan in place. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. And then it was all stripped back, trying to get answers off the guy who was investing. But Bear Stearns Bank went under, Lehman Brothers went under, the Icelandic banks went under, stock market share prices were going down. And I think he used the money he'd raised for us to bail himself out for other areas. And then we carried on a route of trying to get other investment in. So we started a property project linked to the same idea. But then nobody was wanting to invest money in 2009, 2010 was a tough time for a lot. I don't know if you remember much.
I do, yeah. I remember a lot of my friends, parents and stuff going through like tough times. One of them, I remember coming to school saying, my dad's just gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I obviously I knew what it was, but I didn't fully understand it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it was a tough time for everybody, to be fair. Did you always want to have your own business though?
I always wanted to. I've got quite a strong personality, I suppose. So maybe don't like getting told what to do.
Yeah.
But also, I think as you get older, you start learning the ability of, especially a leader, when you've got people in your team, that you're the one that's responsible for making the decision. But if you're ever arrogant enough to think that you know it all, you don't. Listen to intelligent people that work with you and for you. And my dad always taught me, you take the best ideas from everybody and then you compile it and put it into one. And that's the methodology I think I've always had. And again, going back before about being out of your comfort zone, I had to go bankrupt with this project because I just wouldn't give up on it. I've got this determination that I'll always see something through to the end, and that can sometimes be blinded because you can end up in an environment, like young kids at the time, where you just don't. It's like, I suppose, go to the casino with a couple of £100, you lose it. And some people will just walk away and think, I've lost it. Others, I want to win it back. So you go to the cash point, you get more money out to try and win it back. Then you end up in more and more trouble.
Yeah, I did that when I was younger. I remember at university, student loan, my final term.
Yeah.
You're only there for a couple of weeks because you go back home. Went there with one of my mates, lost was it all of it, like £800 to £1,200, something in one night? Because like you say, you just go and then you lose 50, you get another 100 out, and then you get another 200 out because you try and double it. And it's just, it's a vicious cycle. So I don't bet anymore.
Put a few zeros to that. That's what I was doing. It's an old cliche, and people probably think with the older generation or more experienced, man, what do you know? Because I thought about that with my parents.
Yeah.
But what you learn from that, I lost my house.
Really?
My cars got repossessed because I wouldn't let go of this dream. My ex-wife left at the time. What made it worse is as well, within a couple of weeks, you started seeing somebody with a Porsche.
Oh.
So I had to borrow my dad's car to drop the kids off. And I was seeing this guy. And you know what?
Kicking the balls.
Things like that, it's strange because it drives you on even more. And it gives you that real momentum to, rather than sit back and feel sorry for yourself, which I probably did for a period of time, you get to the stage where you think, son it, like roll my sleeves up, effing show them. And I did do that, became a consultant, but I pieced it together gradually. And the company now that I run, I'm managing director for, I came across the technology by pure chance.
Okay.
Met the president and the CFO of the company from America over in Liverpool, and could have backed out of this project so many times because the previous American distributor, they were pretty arrogant. They didn't listen to anybody. I was a consultant. I was trying to give them advice. They weren't listening. And then they went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US, and I contacted the president and the CFO of the company. We ended up getting on extremely well, peas from the same pod.
Yeah.
I knew I'd like them actually when I first met them and they started talking about Monty Python and Benny Hill and the toilet humor that us Brits have got. Because you always sometimes think Americans and us, we speak the same language.
Yeah. The humor's completely different. Completely different. They're really cheesy, aren't they? And we're quite dry and sarcastic.
All things like, I remember a movie with Ben Stiller called, it was when he got married. It was, oh God, I can't remember.
Put yourself on the spot.
Anyway, come to me probably. I'll be right at the end. And, and I love Ben Stiller, he's my favorite movie star.
Okay.
Because he's got a British sense of humor. And some of his movies are just ridiculously stupid, some of the things he said. And I remember one part when he was on the beach with his mistress, even though his wife was in the hotel room, meeting her family. And they were saying, so what happened to you at school? How did you? He turned down, well, I lost my virginity on the centre circle on the American football pitch. Yeah, so the kid had me banged down and was giving me a right from behind. And then the people around the table, you could tell he was joking.
Yeah.
The people around the table went, really? Did you sue him? Did you take him to court for doing that? He said,
I can imagine.
no, I'm just joking.
Answer, yeah.
But that can be a lot of the sense of humor. Americans, they don't quite get the irony of our sense of humor.
Yeah, everything's literal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then, so how did that meeting come about then in Liverpool, like you say, then?
Well, it's spotting an opportunity when the American company initially who had distribution rights for Europe, this technology went under. We got direct contact with the president of the company. And
how did you do that?
Well, it was actually, funnily enough, it was through another American guy in Paris.
Okay.
Who was the ex-VP of Pepsi or something. He introduced us and he became involved in the company, but he didn't really bring any to the table, so he didn't last long. And we met them. They came over in Liverpool. We sat down with them and we got on, which goes back to what I said before.
Relationships being nice, likable.
Yeah, being likable. And Steve, the whole family were extremely close now, holiday together. Mark, the CFO, is a little bit quieter. And I'm allowed to tell rude jokes, aren't I?
Yeah. I'll swear and everything.
And this is a ridiculous joke, absolutely ridiculous. But Mark's got a great sense of humor. And I thought, right, I'm going to have to break the ice here. And I thought, I hope I'm remembering jokes. And I remembered one, which was, the old why did the chicken cross the road jokes. Why did the pervert cross the road?
Why?
Because he couldn't get his cock out the chicken's arse. It was so basic, but
you said that to him.
Yeah, Mark was in fits of laughter for about 5 minutes thereafter. He had tears rolling down.
Getting more relaxed then, don't they? Yeah. That's what you need to do.
And we got on great from then. They started talking about Benny Hill, the scene. I don't know if you know Adam, but it was very unfortunately because political correctness now, they can't have them on TV, find them on YouTube. It was very much around, books and blondes and him sort of looking at boobs and bums. And there was a small bald guy that he would always back forward each motion, but he keeps slapping this bald guy in the head and sort of chasing him around, chasing after women with nursing forms on and other things that are politically incorrect now that they don't really use. But they have that sort of sense of humor like we do. And that went from a colleague of mine, because I got divorced, I wanted to be more UK based because close to the family. And James, one of my colleagues, started running Europe for them. And things didn't quite work out. He wanted to go out to the Far East. So I approached them. I said, look, I'm ready to take on a more international role like I used to have. And they sort of said, yeah, we're happy to do that. We know you. We trust you. However, Europe's a bitch of a market because there's like 29 European languages, official languages, not to mention the unofficial ones. We just can't be bothered with it. This previous company failed. The guidance for you just wasn't quite right. And I said, look, I think we can get it somewhere. And they said, well, if you want any money, we're not going to give you any. We'll give you a reduced price in the early stages. We'll maybe let you pay late for lasers. And we had to strip the company right back. And I kept Jody on, who's my office manager. And I'd probably performed 10 people's jobs in one to try and get it off the ground to prove to them that we could make a success of it. And it took a lot longer than it would have took if we had money. And it was maybe, I don't know, first 2 years, it must have been 7 or 8 months where we didn't have enough money in the bank to actually pay our wages.
Yeah.
So we'd have to wait for sales to be made so we could pay each other. And then as time goes on, things start to get more successful. You got to speculate to accumulate. So we start doing some of the big events. But you've got to make sure that the risk is calculated whenever ever doing it. Do your due diligence, research behind the scenes. And
like what kind of stuff would you do then?
Well, our first event was, we didn't really have the money for it, but we did because one of the lasers was for body sculpting to reduce fat and sculpt bodies and what have you. And the big event where you're trying to attract distribution partners was called the Aesthetic Medicine World Congress in Monaco.
Oh yeah. First that one this happened recently.
Yes, exactly. But we had everything on a shoestring. And do you remember the old Meccano sets when you were a kid? I used to, maybe when I was a kid. It's just like a construction that you'd sort of build up and stuff, and then it would be a dinosaur. And you're like,
I'll just say, yeah, for the sake of the podcast.
We committed to it. We didn't have the money to be able to afford to stay in Monaco. We stayed in Nice, which was cheaper, and I got a car rental driving through. And we were in the basement of this exhibition. Jody in the office, very good, using his hands and putting things together. And we had something called a T2 stand or something, where it's like little strips and you attach one and then you build it and put it all together. and the panels have magnetic strips on the back and you just got to stick them on.
Okay.
So literally we started off doing that because we had to attract distribution partners in different countries who knew their market, spoke the language. And it was just a gradual thing from then. We had to start with at the bottom, not very impressive. But now if you just saw the stand that we had at the Aesthetic Medicine Live Congress in London, I think ours was the nicest stand there, but it's taken a long time, a lot of hardship, a lot of gray hairs to get to that. But the message, I suppose, is we keep getting a lot of these things in life, which put us back several steps. But the ones that eventually get there are the ones that just don't give up and you just keep going and keep going.
I was going to say, so why did you think this was the right project? I mean, it's like you're saying it fails in the past game.
Yeah.
Why was this one?
Well, I mean, before I even took on this, when everything went pear-shaped, I had to, the house got repossessed. I got another role with an American company, didn't quite work out. They went back on their word on a few things. So, and again, I left that role without having anything to go to because when we were in a recession, I thought, somebody in my experience and my knowledge, people would be lining up to take me, but I'd wait 12 months. Yeah. I had to move in with my father. Yeah. I even had to sign on initially it was to pay the rent on the house that I had.
Yeah.
And I just got a gut feeling about the market and never underestimate the importance of gut feels about things.
Yeah.
Yes. Before you go off on a whim, do more research behind it. But I just thought this technology would then eventually get somewhere and I wanted to be part of it. So yeah, I went through another couple of jobs before the opportunity came about, found it online, contacted them, and then it just sort of led from there.
So what were the early years like for you then when you first took it on?
Like I said, I was juggling about 10 people's jobs in one.
Yeah.
But I could have as a matter of fact, because I got on so well with them, they didn't think Europe would work out. And they had a position over in the US, which they put me. They said at the time it was in the Midwest. And Midwest. Now I looked, it was like Chicago way, and I looked at the temperatures in winter. I thought, there's no way I'm going there. Florida maybe, or
that'd be nice,
or California, but
Florida would have been nice.
Could have got your PPL
again, yes.
Exactly. But I wanted to build something. I really wanted to make a difference. And one thing that really resonated me with them was they're a family business.
Okay.
5 of the brothers who actually own the company, 5 of the people who own the company are brothers. And one thing, Steve, the president of the company, really resonated with me, Adam, when I met him. I said to him, you've got some fantastic technologies here. Why don't you float the company, do an IPO? I'll help you with that and generate the money to try to compete with the big boys. And he said, you know what? He said, there's 70 people that work for me, are friends and family. If I did that, I would hand their futures over to somebody that doesn't care about them. And I can't do that. I feel like I want to try to nurture everybody within our family unit. And that sort of resonated, which is why when things started to take off here, I wanted to bring people in that had the same sort of mentality, not the cutthroat, car salesman mentality. I want people in that watch each other's backs. We become like a family.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how big I think we get, I still won't lose the core, differences that I really wanted to make, which were, have each other look after each other, trying to grow or get people with like-minded, ambitious mentalities. Forget sometimes about the corporate malarkey that goes on because I've been involved in that in the past. If I want people to overachieve for me, I need to make them enjoy their job. Yeah. Let's create an environment where they can enjoy their work. Because if they enjoy their work, they're going to perform at a higher level.
Yeah, definitely. It's very powerful from what they said in America, isn't it? For them to say that.
I was gobsmacked because the previous American company made statements to me and they didn't follow through with them. The previous American company, again, I worked with, it was very much a case of, hey, man, now I can do it. I'm no sales forward. Oh, for God's sake. That doesn't work across here. In any market, which I now specialize in market launches, you can take sort of 70% of an infrastructure and take it to each market, but you've got to bespoke the rest of it specific to the market you're in. Like if I tried to launch something in Germany the same as the UK, it probably wouldn't work because they have a different mentality.
Yeah.
And then same with Spain, if I went to launch something there, again, that wouldn't work. You've got to tailor it specific to the people who are going to be selling to and understand their mentalities, their market, their culture.
Yeah, definitely. So then when do you think things started to kick on then? Can you remember the year or anything specifically?
God, I think...
how many years did it take?
Altogether, it's taken about 11 to 10 years since I first started with them. And I think it was probably about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Because we had a distribution-based business model. Because Europe, as I said, it's different mentalities. If we as a British company just employed people in each country and adopted our mentality, then the likelihood is it won't work. There's a lot of American companies that have gone bankrupt when they've done that. Yeah. So we had a distribution-based business model. So we had to go to a lot of these events like in Monaco to try to put ourselves in the shop window to get distributors approach us because they wanted to sell our products in each country. And if you're starting a business and you don't have the revenues right on the front end, that's the most cautious way to do things. Yeah. You don't have the profit margins because you've got to pay them to do it. So what tends to mostly happen is you start off with that sort of strategy. And then once you achieve a certain level of success, you think, right, I'm going to go direct. So in the UK, we decided to go direct. Went through 2 people that didn't work out as a sales manager, came across Vanessa. And within, I'd say 15 minutes, but even 5 minutes, I just knew with her. She had her head switched on. She was a smart cookie. I don't want one of these companies where I'm the one that makes all the decisions. I think that should be spread across the board to empower people who work with you to be involved in the process. And I knew Vanessa, even though she didn't really have the network within the medical aesthetic market, it wouldn't take her long to get there. We just had to set things up digitally to provide her with opportunities to try to grow and grow and grow and grow. So again, that was the 3rd sales manager that I got to. It didn't work out with the previous 2. Made mistakes with the first one, decided with one of the Americans who came over. He said he had a flawless plan to recruit, and it was based on interviews and putting people in uncomfortable situations and seeing how they respond. Yeah. And I was like, okay, let's go with this. We found somebody that did well in the interview, but within a month or 2, he knew she wasn't working. She wasn't a hard worker. She was just giving it large. Like the interview.
Good game.
Yeah. And that told me that quality and gut sometimes.
Yeah, because people can interview well, can't they? But then when it comes down to the fundamentals of actually coming in day to day, then if they can't perform, then...
I agree. But we can help people. And this is what we want to do. We want to help people perform as long as they've got the right attitude and they're willing to work hard. We'll teach them the rest. But yeah, she was complaining about working weekends, and we told her at the interview stage that this is what it would be. And then when I got in touch with Alana at VL Aesthetics, she found out about this technology, which now starting to change the whole market and the way surgeons and also cosmetic doctors look at body sculpting and treating fat. And she approached me. I did a front page advert in one of the journals, came to see her, didn't come up with anything at the time, but as time went on, we kept in touch, said I wanted somebody to lead the UK. She said, what about my daughter, Vanessa? So I was like, okay. And like I said, I knew within 5 minutes, Adam, that she was such a smart cookie, is such a smart cookie, isn't scared to mince it up, has a lot of conviction, drives things forward, has the creative ideas. And I've really brought on pretty much a team of women, starting with Vanessa to try to get, again, the equality. I think they both all brought fantastic ideas. But I've always been the type, I don't care whether it's male, female, black, white, or whatever, it's the best person to job.
Yeah, and I think that's so true, isn't it? That when people are forced to do the equality, they're just getting somebody, the coloured or the female, just for the sake of it. Yeah. But if they're right for the job, they're right for the job, exactly. Aren't they? It doesn't matter who they are or what they do.
It's a shame, though, because, like I said, if it was about 20 people, I want the best people. If that's 20 men, 20 women, a mixture of each, a mixture of ethnicity, a mixture of sexuality, it doesn't bother me as long as that person can do the job. But you do have to be careful in this day and age with lawsuits and all sorts of things. And, I've tried to create an environment where everybody has fun and has a good time as well. But you've got to be careful that you don't go over the line in this day and age.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously we talked about when things have kicked on.
Yeah.
Things obviously kick on when you've got a good product to sell, don't they? Yeah. So let's talk a bit about technologies and the different ones. And the main one's the Emerald, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about any of the other ones and how you've kind of implemented it and what the benefits are to say doctors and clinics across the UK.
Well, I mean, Europe's hard anyway. We're in the Middle East now as well, because to get a product into Europe, to get a CE marking so you can sell it, you only have to prove something safe. Whereas in the US, to get an FDA clearance, you've got to prove something safe and it's effective.
Okay.
So they'll give you a set criteria. So if we're reducing fat or body sculpting, we want to do a study that'll say, right, we want you to achieve 6 centimeters fat loss, and then we'll give you the clearance. If you don't, they don't give you the clearance.
All right.
And that's the difference in the US. Things across there tend to be a lot more tested. They tend to do what they say on the tin a lot more. Whereas in Europe, because you didn't have to prove something's effective, we get flooded in this market with so much rubbish, from China, or a lot of the cheap stuff that comes from there, from, companies that don't have the necessary research to back up what it does. And that's key no matter what market you're in. If you're going to invest your hard-earned money into buying something, you want to do your due diligence. And Erchonia are a research and development company, Adam. So everything they bring to market, they provide gold standard clinical evidence, and that's key. But doctors also need to understand how to read through the evidence and what the important parts, of it are. And all Erchonia's research is randomized, which means we don't just choose the best patients to participate.
That'd be nice if you did.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the problem, because a lot of companies have done non-randomized research, which means they can handpick the patients that make them look better. But the fact of life is, as human beings, all of us are different. So, just if you and I had a treatment, the likelihood is I would need more treatments than you. But if you didn't know that, if you just saw everybody getting good treatments and you do the same protocol on everybody, you would end up falling flat on your face. So double-blind and placebo-controlled means, because we're non-thermal laser diode, hits into visible light. Visible light to the mere mortal is, as a laser, it delivers energy, not heat. Most people associate lasers like James Bond. You chop somebody's head off, they're extremely warm. And lasers for skin resurfacing and things, they do need power, they do need heat. So the higher you go up, the more heat, the more power you need. But when you get down to visible light, we found a way of actually doing things without causing any trauma, without destroying anything, but coming across something that works naturally in harmony with the body. And we've reached a stage now since COVID that a lot of patients, I think, are more in tune with the health and wellness. They wanted something with an immune response and more energy. And visible light is no downtime, no pain. It sends high energy photons into the body, which gets absorbed by the mitochondria of our cells. Mitochondria is like you plug in a mobile phone at the end of each night.
Okay, yeah.
It's not going to work until you put energy into it.
Yeah.
So sending these photons into the body can make biological changes at the cellular level. So we can actually shrink fat cells without destroying them. So there's research coming out now for every one fat cell you destroy, at least 10 more will regrow in other areas of your body. Linda Evangelista has been in the press, an ex-supermodel. I don't know whether you've heard of her.
No.
Ex-supermodel complaining that she had a treatment with a fat freezing technology, and she the fat cells ended up reappearing in her neck. It gave her, it's a rare case, but it gave her an abnormality. She lost her confidence. So with Emerald, it can reduce fat. It's got the proper research behind it, which I said, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, multi-center. Patients have to sign an affidavit that they won't change their lifestyle because we want the results to be just the laser.
Yeah.
And it's the right technology at the right time. Timing's everything. Since COVID, we're able to prove, like I said, that reducing fat doesn't just necessarily look good from the outside. What effects is it having on you biologically? Can it help your day-to-day life activities? Has it got any health and wellness benefits? And we've got research to show that it can increase viable mitochondria, which is like giving you an immune response.
Yeah.
So you're relatively young anyway. I'm 52. Does my body respond the same as when it was 22? No.
Yeah.
But if we can provide a treatment which can give me an immune response, it means that can we cure cancer? Can we cure heart disease? Can we cure COVID? No, not at all. But can we empower your body so that it's in a better position to fight these things? We've proved through non-thermal laser that you can.
Yeah.
And because we shrink the fat then comes out of the body through the lymphatic system. It's converted into free fatty acids, which is used to fuel our organs and our muscles. So patients feel like they've got a more energy. They can do more things. We're the only technology FDA cleared for obesity or for patients up to 40 BMI. Most other technologies, they treat stubborn areas of fat. So launching something into a market is about timing and coming up with the right product. I've seen some average technologies make a shed load because they've had the right infrastructure. They've had the right people representing them. And I've also seen some really good technologies fail because the right people weren't involved. They didn't have the right strategy. So
getting your team behind the scenes, create the infrastructure is just as important as the technology.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely think since, like you say, since COVID, more people are spending money for the now, aren't they?
Yeah.
On like cosmetic procedures and stuff. And you think, oh, life's too short.
Yeah.
YOLO, I'm going to spend it on that. And people are very conscious, aren't they? So if they can do something to help, and they will, because there's so many like fad diets out, isn't there?
Yeah.
And skinny teas and proteins and all that kind of thing. So when you introduced it, did you ever have any people that were skeptical about first using it? I'd imagine it would just go from like the shift of nothing works for me, I've tried everything, to this, which is actually proven to work.
Definitely. Even still so now, it's a huge education. And, I think we evolve as a company and we're evolving this market. And it's a case of getting a lot of clinics and a lot of medical people who run the clinics to be a bit open-minded and look at what modern research is providing. And this is sometimes the problem if the education isn't there. Oh, that can't possibly work. Well, have you looked at the recent research? Do you know how to read research? So what I would say to a lot of patients who are going for treatments, because of the lack of regulation in Europe, it's maybe not a bad idea to ask the clinic questions about the clinical evidence backing it up. What sort of evidence have you got? And one, if anybody wants to mention it, is in the US, something called a level 1 510K, which means it's gold standard. Because patients will go into a clinic, they'll have specific treatments. Some will work great, but some may not quite perform how they would expect it to perform. And is that because the clinic maybe hasn't done the necessary levels of due diligence into what they were bringing on? I don't know. But the patients now are starting to look up more things online. It's a good idea to research into the treatment that you're actually getting before you go ahead with it. But also as well, times move on, technologies move on. We go through like an evolution, and it might sound arrogant, but I think because of all of the technologies in the market at the minute, it's much of a muchness. It's another heating technology. It's another cooling one. It's another heating one. It's another cooling one. And they're being recycled and rebranded. Whereas you're not really giving patients something new. You're just giving them something that has a different brand that is the same technology as that one and that one and that one. So the way we come across to a lot of our clinics is research, top quality research. We spend about $1 million on each study so that it gives the doctor and the patient reassurance that it does what we say it does.
That's important.
The second one, quiz your doctor or your clinic, ask them about the technology and what the research is behind it. Ask about leading trends and what else is coming out. And from a doctor's perspective, one thing recessions have taught us is you've got to future-proof your business. So if you're just going to use recycled technology all the time because you understand it rather than being open-minded, looking at other new things that are coming out, it's going to be tough next time a recession comes because you're just offering the same as other people. Be open-minded, look at different ways to doing things. It doesn't mean you've got to buy it, but at least be aware of it, because your patient expects you to be aware of everything that's currently available and they expect you to give them the best.
Yeah, definitely. And so for you, I'd imagine it was hard to get the product in the first few clinics, wasn't it? But then after that, people kind of follow. So how were you kind of pitching it or selling it to people in the first place then to try and get the first clinics involved?
That's a great question, because it's not just about the technology. It's about building up trust and a relationship with the customer. And it goes back to what we said before, and that's important in all aspects of life, our personal life or our business life. So infrastructure-wise, we had to make sure we get the right people involved in the business that can help drive it forward and the education. We had to make sure that we had a PR company on board. Vanessa, our UK manager, sourced a fantastic one called Mantelpiece, and they had to really create the branding for us and create the momentum. Digital marketing as well. We know through the US FDA website that the results on this is better than any other technology on the market, but we need to make patients aware of that. So they go in and they're aware, they've got some knowledge about it before they go into the clinic. So it's not just one thing. It's trying to get lots of different pieces of the cake in place. But it's also, again, being at a lot of the medical events to try to educate the doctors with neutral, unbiased information. This isn't specifically done just to make them buy our technology, but it's done so that they have a thorough understanding. As I may choose to buy or not, but I know exactly what it does and I know how it compares with everything else.
think that's such a valid point, like you say, educating people so they understand what it is and what it does. Because if you're saying to people, oh yeah, it can help you lose fat and it's no downtime, you would think, that's a load of rubbish, isn't it? But then if you educate them on the studies and make them understand how the technology works, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll bear that in mind for a few months down the line.
But it's the mechanism of action, and we try to keep it in layman's terms to the consumers, because they haven't got degrees like the doctors have. Yeah. But also as well, I think it's good from a patient's perspective to have that certain level of education, know the questions to answer when they come in. If they get approached on a certain technology, tell me what it does. What's the research behind it? Even saying, is it randomized research? Is there any adverse reactions or side effects reported? How many peer-reviewed published journals do that company have? And it's up to the clinic, I suppose, to look at the bigger picture. If they're going to offer something to their patients, make sure that they've done their research into what they're buying.
Yeah, definitely. So then what would you say is next then for you?
Keep pushing forward education, Adam. Knowledge is power. And understanding value for money, you really need to job it to appreciate the value of it. So we'll carry on educating the consumers, as well as educating the doctors as to a new way of doing things. We just need to keep planting the seeds, getting the right staff on board, keep the growth that we've got in the UK going. We're multi-award winning now. We won the best body shaping device at the Aesthetic Medicine World Congress in Monaco at the end of March. We won the best energy device at the Safety and Beauty Awards in London in December. We've won the top 10 trends for Forbes magazine in London. We've been in Vanity Fair. We've been in Tatler magazine. We've been in the Mail, the Countrywide, the Sun.
How do you remember all these?
I was trying to think there, but that's the important part about having a good infrastructure behind the scenes, because, and don't get me wrong, most clinics are ethical, but if a patient comes in, they're asking for a treatment in something, we want to try to educate them so they know the right questions to ask when they come into a clinic, because it's human nature to an extent. Unfortunately, we've all made mistakes. And in this industry, if somebody buys something because they've had a bad sales rep that's been giving the impression that it works differently to what it does, they buy it, they get it in, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't quite deliver the results that they want. They're stuck between a pillar and a barge post because they might have got finance over 5 years to pay for this. So this is the importance, I think, of education. And I'd prefer, rather than to grow like that on an incline, I want to grow gradually and keep planting the educational seeds. And then I would envisage in 3 to 5 years' time, we want to get to most of the consumers. We want to make the treatments available, not just to everybody in the UK, but all around the world. Europe is the next step, mainland Europe. We've just taken a territory manager on in Sweden to go direct. We hope to be able to do that in Germany, also in France. We're looking to an open office in UAE at the end of the year.
Yeah, so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the obesity rates around the world are just crazy. And obesity is not just about how you look, it's also about health. And we're the only technology that can actually have health and wellness benefits, as well as, reducing the size of fat. So we can look at things like the clinics will look at the diabetes side, the cholesterol, leptin levels, lifestyle changes, because obesity is a disease. It's not just coming in, getting a treatment and going away. Some of the clinics have psychotherapists to try to get inside the patient's head. But if I'm going to get on my ethical high horse, this should be in every NHS hospital and outpatient clinic in the whole country, because it might stop patients having to go through surgery. It could save the NHS trust an absolute load of money by stopping the issue before it becomes an issue.
Yeah, preventative, yeah.
Preventative, yeah.
Cure, yeah. So I was going to say, so when you sell something to a clinic then, do you have any quality assurance, or do you do a due diligence on them who buy it, or how do you make sure that they're using the equipment properly? Do you do training and that kind of thing? Or?
The training, I've always said the training and support is just as important as technology. Even though you don't have to be a medical professional to use it, our market, we target medical professionals. So whether they're doctor-led clinics or nurse-led clinics, somebody with a medical background, because there's no side effects or adverse reactions, so you can't do any harm. But we don't just want it to be about the safety. We want every patient going through to get the best results they possibly can. And if we even think that a clinic that approaches us aren't going to be the right company for us, we won't place the laser there. because you can't underestimate the importance of reputation. You know, all it takes for social media, we discussed this before. Social media is so prevalent everywhere. All it takes is one person not happy and to put a remark on Twitter or on Instagram. And it's the equivalent of probably about 500 good remarks as soon as I see one negative.
Yeah, it takes so long to build up a reputation. It only takes that to ruin it.
Without a shadow of a doubt. So the training and support is massive.
So what do you do then to train and support?
Well, as soon as a clinic comes on board, and we started this through COVID times, we started a range of modules for the staff. And they all had to do that. And when they passed, which was to get 75% results, then they'd become a certified Emerald user. They need to theoretically know how to explain it to the patient and how to make the patient understand. We have a level 2, which is the practical side of it, where they get to see treatments on different parts of the body, to understand how to conduct a consultation, to understand which protocol to use, because depending on the patient, it might be once a week, twice a week, or 3 times a week. So they need to know that. The importance of the lymphatic system, it's not a miracle. You know, don't think this is a miracle. We can show 15 centimeters reduction on one of our studies on patients who met the study criteria. But that doesn't come without making some lifestyle changes. If you're going to eat McDonald's every day of the week for a month, you're going to refill your body with fat that we've removed. So it's to make sure that the clinics explain it in the right way to the clients. And then after that, we do practical training. We have a trainer, Jasmina, in the UK, who goes to the clinic, answers any questions they have. She starts up a WhatsApp group with every clinic. If they're having issues, we don't want to find out about it later on the line. We want to find out early so we can do something about it. So we'll adopt this strategy in every network that we go to make sure that we can keep the highest levels of efficacy possibly can.
I think that's important, isn't it? Like me personally, in my business, I like to have weekly meetings with people.
Yeah.
Just to check up on them. Even if like nothing's changed from 7 days before, just say, how's it going? This is what's going on. And if there's a little niggle, you can say, all right, I'll fix that. Not a problem. But if you don't speak to them like a month or 2 months or whatever, that little problem becomes a massive problem. Yeah. And then you're thinking, this is an absolute nightmare when it could have been solved ages ago.
It's like that in personal life and relationships. So how many times have you seen something small that ends up in something huge because communication isn't there? And we say that to every clinic. Don't be doing, if you've got a question, if you've got an issue, we can't help you unless we know about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to carry on making the same mistakes over and over and over. And we had one company recently, which I'm not going to mention it, but, they placed one of their machines in a clinic for 6 weeks, and the lady never heard from them during that whole 6 weeks. So she ended up ringing them to take it out, and they tried it half the price so she'd keep it. And she's like, well, why would I do that? You haven't been in touch with me during the whole course of the treatment. That doesn't give me the confidence in your product. So Jasmina, we say to them, look, if you haven't heard from a clinic for a couple of weeks, get in touch with them. Yeah. And we stress the point at the start, if you're struggling with any aspect of it, let us know. But that's why the e-learning modules help. We try to make it fun. It's not just like a PowerPoint. I just go through slides. There's videos and animation, there's multiple choice questions. So we need to make sure that the clinic and their staff have the knowledge. And when they do, that's when they get top end results.
Nice. So then let's go into biggest strength as you personally are in business. What do you think?
Biggest strength, I suppose, I would say, is a dogged determination that I won't give up.
Yeah.
I've been through, as I alluded to before, so many ups and downs. And I started later in life, which is why I keep saying to my son, dig in at university, have the level of drive and ambition, and everything you want out of life will come to you so much quicker. I've had to wait for the things that I've wanted because I didn't have my head screwed on when I was younger.
Yeah.
So, try to have that maturity. Yes, enjoy your life. Yes,
balance, though, isn't it?
It is. It's a balance, and make sure that you put yourself in the window. You get the key characteristics, not just like in football, for example. I'd say to him, make sure your bag's packed, and he'd turn up. They'd say, oh, it's artificial because of the weather.
Yeah.
But I haven't brought any artificial trainers because 99 times out of 100, I won't need them. So yeah, but it's that one time you need to prepare for. So every time you go to something, be prepared for it. With business, every time you launch something, be prepared for the event of something different happening or taking you off in a different tangent. So I think that's one of my strengths of being able to adapt, look at things individually and making quick decisions.
What do you think your greatest weaknesses?
The same.
People are starting.
I was going to say women there actually, but
yeah, that would be first one.
Yeah, but it's sometimes it's also knowing, which I've had to learn over the years, that this stubborn determination and doggedness to succeed sometimes can make you a bit tunnel visioned. And it's also to remain open-minded and knowing when you've got to the level where you've got to just say, look, I've taken it as far as I've got to, I'm not going any further. I didn't have that. I lost my house. I lost my cars. I was down to like my last £1,000. And we got to remember that each of us has a different interpretation of hardship. My interpretation of hardship maybe is different to yours, who's different to somebody else's. So there's a lot of people that are worse off. But in my world, I got as far down as I possibly could. And I had to get back. So it's teaching me that keep open-minded with everything. Look at everything holistically, So a weakness, what was a weakness, I think I've turned into a strength because I've experienced
self-awareness as well, isn't it? Like being able to reflect and understand what is your weakness and turn it into a strength, and know your strength can be a weakness as well.
Exactly. But it's bringing a team together as well, because we all can't be great at everything. It's just bringing a team together where some people's weaknesses are identified by somebody else's strengths, and trying to build a team that way. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle, just getting everything to fit. But it's being patient as well, because Europe especially is a market where unless I've got 20 million in the bank that I can flood into the market, it's going to take a while, and you've got to be patient. You want everything to be done yesterday, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah, that's a terrible trait of business owners, isn't it?
It is.
But you want it done now, no patience at all. So then let's plug everything. So if people want to find you or want to get in touch, how can they do that?
Well, we've got our websites. We've got Erchonia-emea.com. We've got Emerald-EMEA, which stands for Europe, Middle East and Africa. You'll find a lot of our clinics on there. We've got our YouTube channel as well, which is full of, education and PR as well, because every good product needs to be promoted. VL Aesthetics is our center of excellence in North England, and they've done a fantastic job with Emerald. We've got the Dr. Medi Spa clinics, which are in Knightsbridge, Loughton and Marylebone. 2 of the clinics have Emerald. We've got Dr. Bob Carner, who's a big name in the industry in Reading. We've got Dr. Natalie Geary in Surrey. We've got Dr. Dev Patel down in Portsmouth. So we've tried to, get a good core of top clinics within specific regions in the UK so that patients can have access. We're working on the Midlands at the minute. There's a couple of good clinics come on board, but from our website, you'll be able to find a clinic and find out which one's closest to you. But remember, everybody, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money on something, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you do your due diligence. It's absolutely key.
Yeah, I was going to say, any closing thoughts, or do you want to end it on that?
Just, as I said, sometimes, I think the world, we're full of people who can maybe give misleading comments and things. So don't always take what you hear for gospel. Do your own research. Take ownership of your own life. I'm an example of somebody that's had to have quite a few failures before I end up having a success. But there's something to be learned from every failure that you have. And it's only the ones that keep making the same mistakes over and over, the ones that don't learn. So, keep positive, keep rolling your sleeves up. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Work bloody hard.
That's a great way to end. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment your favorite part. Any questions for Simon, leave in there. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review. And we'll see you next time. Bye, 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 bye.